So today we'll do a quick recap of part one for today's session. We're going to cover implementing Notification Composer, which is really going through all the setup pages. All right. So a quick recap. I put together a couple of things to kind of highlight some of the things to remember. What is Notification Composer? It's a new EC framework that makes managing notifications with PeopleTools notifications a little bit easier. It's kind of the middle, the broker, or I hate to say middle person that integrates with PeopleTools. It generates notifications, creates a notification trigger using event mapping. It can define your recipients, and it allows you to compose the content. On the right-hand side, we kind of have the flow chart I showed in part one that shows how the whole thing hangs together. Notification Composer is now in the middle, and it does all of the integration on with the application for system-generated notifications. It integrates with PeopleTools. It actually sends the notification, determines the delivery method based on admin setup, as well as if there are personalizations allowed for the end user by the administrator. Also, notification name is kind of the common theme between the two. That's what integrates the two in Notification Composer. We're going to dig into each one of these. You define certain parameters and aspects in Notification Composer. You specify notification name, and that's what integrates or hooks it up with PeopleTools. And the notification name has other attributes like whether the notification is mandatory, what the available delivery methods are, whether it's enabled by default, whether personalization is allowed, and then the notification is sent. So that's kind of how all the different pieces hang together. Okay, with that, that's the 2-minute review. I didn't cover everything. Hopefully, a lot of other things will be discussed as we walk through the slides. So let's start at the very beginning. Installation. So with continuous delivery, we can't assume that every customer is going to turn this on or wants it turned on. So there is an installation flag that's being added to each application pillar's installation page. The example I have here is from FSCM because it's very straightforward and it doesn't have like 100 different pages like the HCM one does. So it was very easy to include a screenshot. Only reason why I included FSCM. Also, not to be biased since I'm from HCM. So at the very bottom, enable Notification Composer. This is what controls whether Notification Composer is going to be used in a customer's environment. It will be added to every pillar installation table as that pillar implements Notification Composer. You'll notice here that I mentioned HCM, FSCM, and ELM. I think there was a question last time about Campus. So Campus and CRM are still in flux. So I've already mentioned a couple of these things, so I'm not going to repeat it. I mean, this is really the controlling factor. And basically what you need to know is that this install flag is automatically enabled if a customer selects the Notification Composer feature in PUM, in PeopleSoft Update Manager, and the feature is applied to the target environment. So once they select this feature, we automatically enable Notification Composer. It's a little bit different approach than we've done for other types of features. At least in HCM and FSCM, a similar one is delegations. So the reason why we're doing this is, as we discussed in part one, is that the longer term approach is that we are going to deprecate or de-support the older methodologies of sending notifications in the application. Customers, at least in HCM, will have 2 years since we're done delivering. So basically that means December of 2025 is when we will de-support the older way of sending notifications. And in part 3 or part 4, depending on where it lands, we'll talk about the differences in pillars and their respective de-support dates based on what they've delivered when. Okay, so the thing to know about Notification Composer, I covered a little bit of this in part one, is that once it's on, it changes the behavior of quite a few things. It does get a little complicated, so I wanted to go through what some of these nuances are. The first one is that when Notification Composer is checked on or enabled, all approval workflow engine related notifications will utilize Notification Composer. Notice how I emphasized all, italicized and underlined it. This is something definitely to understand from a support perspective. You may have a customer call in and say, oh, well, everything you delivered is using Notification Composer, but the things I deliver now, I have as a customer are now using that as well, and I'm not ready. Well, once this flag is on, everything in AWE will use Notification Composer, whether it's something we delivered or whether it's something that is custom to the customer. It will go through a conversion process that we will discuss in part 3 in the coming weeks. So main thing here is that everything, when this flag is turned on from an AWE perspective, will start to use Notification Composer. All of the converted notifications from the application that are not AWE related will utilize Notification Composer. So what that means by converted is the last several years, the applications have been going through and looking at all their notifications, whether it's trigger business event, whether it's a direct email that we're calling MCF to send like an email notification, workflow notifications, things like that. All of these things we converted or made Notification Composer ready for this particular framework. So everything converted that's not AWE related will use Notification Composer as well. And the interesting part is that there's a lot of notifications we're leaving behind, especially trigger business events, because there's thousands and thousands. And we were not really sure, a lot of these are not even documented, as we said last time. And we didn't want to spend the effort converting things that no customer is using, because then it's a waste of our development time. So anything not converted by the application or is left to still be converted, like in the financials use cases and others, because they haven't converted everything, but HCM has, those will continue to function as they do today, irrespective of the Notification Composer installation setting. So let me try to explain a little bit more what that means. So basically, let's say there's a trigger business event, and I'm just going to use one that I know we didn't convert. We have French public sector where there's one customer. It doesn't make sense for us to convert about 1,000 French public sector trigger business events because our one customer, Orange, is not using them. So we decided we were not going to convert those. So basically, if Orange for some reason had one or two of these 1,000 that they want to use, it will continue to function as it does today, not using Notification Composer. It'll use the trigger business event people code that it uses today. So it'll still function even when this is on, because we did not convert it. Likewise, anything we do convert, once this is on, it will only use the Notification Composer approach. Also, the big note at the bottom, eventually we may de-support anything that we do not convert. And we'll go over that a little bit more when we talk about the differences in the pillars in a subsequent session. Paul, I assume that you're monitoring the chat, and will interrupt me if there's questions. I see something like a 5 up there.
Yeah, you answered it literally after the question got put in, so we're good, sir.
Okay, good. Just want to make sure. All right. So the $1 million question that, internally people have asked, when we were testing this in development, and then also some of the customers have asked this as well, can I turn this thing off? And At first we said, no, but when we did some research, we figured out, yes, you can. Of course, you have to be careful when you turn it off. So some customers do what we call a get current, which is basically bring in all of the updates that I've never applied into my target environment. We call that get current or make me current, but the technical term is apply all updates not previously applied in PeopleSoft Update Manager. There's some customers that may do a get current or that happen to take this feature, but they're not ready. Maybe they've got a whole bunch of trigger business events that are custom, and they want to have a single approach for everything and don't want a mixed approach. They can turn this off. Even after they've turned it on, we've taken precautions to make sure that it will work. And we'll talk a little bit more about some safeguards that we've added in as part of the change assistant steps to make sure we take backups. And I think we're talking about the change assistant steps at the very end either of this session or, depending on time, maybe the next session. So the short answer is yes. Even after the conversion process has run, you can turn it off. If notification composer is turned off, the application will continue to function as it did prior to applying the notification composer update. However, just like I said in the last couple of minutes, we are planning to de-support the legacy approaches of sending notifications. Notification composer will be the only approach we use going forward as we deliver new features. We're not, let's say that, as an example, we delivered notification composer in our image 47 in HCM. That means new features delivered starting in image 48 will only deliver based on notification composer being implemented. So if the customer doesn't use notification composer, they won't be able to use that new notification from that brand new feature that we deliver going forward. Also, so that's the driving force, as well as the de-support of the legacy approach. System settings. So this is more in People Tools. So besides the application installation setting, the other, most important thing to know in setting this up is the global settings. The system settings in notification administration control the available delivery methods globally across the system. So by default, in-app and email delivery methods are enabled and text messaging is disabled. But if a customer was not going to use in-app at all, and it's just strictly email, at the global level, they can say disabled, and it means nothing will be sent to in-app at all if this is disabled. So it truly is a global setting that affects everything across the board, regardless of other setup. And this kind of shows a little bit, if a delivery method will not be utilized, selecting disabled will prevent any notifications being sent to that delivery method in the applications. The settings in the People Tools notification name will be ignored. Everything will be ignored and will not be routed for the selected delivery method. So even if, code is firing, in our people code that says, okay, we'll send this notification, and it's email and in-app is selected for the notification name. If that setting is disabled, it will ignore all of and you'll actually see that it'll gray out. So in the example I have here, the notification name has in-app yes for everything, which is on the before on the left side. And what happens after you disable it is on the right side, the after. You'll see it grayed out. This can be very confusing, right? Is that we don't necessarily like this design, but this was in People Tools. But I wanted to make you aware of it, is that if you're troubleshooting, to me, this looks like it's still going to send it, but you have to notice that it's grayed out. So that basically means if you're having trouble, the first thing you want to do is go look at the global settings. And if it looks like this, you see a yes, but it's not yellow. That's a terrible design. But that's the way it is right now in People Tools. Make sure you go look at the global settings, because even though this says yes, it's not going to be sent because the global setting is disabled. So we have some enhancements we're asking from PeopleTools to correct this, because we think this is, very hard for a customer to understand. It was hard for us to understand when we were implementing this thing, and we are sure that, some customers are going to run into this as well. Okay, so the in-app settings. This is really where you define everything about in-app. So in-app was previously called push notifications. Just to be aware, there's a change in terminology. And there's several settings to be aware of. There's the setting for notify. So basically what this means is, what is the notification name associated with the notify action in the action menu for fluid transactions. That's all that means, because you can actually send a notification from the action menu for fluid transactions starting in PeopleTools 8.6. I think, or 8.5.9. I'm not really sure which one. I'll have to look that up. Also, there's the maximum action and alert count. This limits the number of notifications shown on the notification panel on the homepage. The action view. This basically allows an alternative view of the actions rather than utilizing the notification panel on the homepage. This is all in PeopleTools. Nothing that we really changed as part of Notification Composer. It's really just to give a background of some of the capabilities that are notifications related as we go along. Next is text. So if a customer enables text messaging, there's a lot of things that the customer can configure. So one of those main things is the text that is shown to get consent that the recipient actually wants to receive text notifications, because a cost can be incurred from the service provider. Also, other things that customers have asked for this is that, just so you know, that's coming in the future, hopefully, is to get an SMS message that basically you verify. Because one of the things that was raised is that, yeah, they give consent, but there's nothing that makes sure that the number that they've entered in My Preferences is their own, like cell phone or mobile phone number or whatever. So for now, all we have is a consent, and that until the user gets consent, they will not receive any text notifications whatsoever. We'll cover My Preferences in a future training session. So when it's enabled, and the other thing that you have to know is that Twilio is required. That's really the only thing currently that we support. It doesn't mean that the customer can't use another provider. It just means that that is really all that we've tested for. We haven't talked to any customer that's used something other than Twilio yet. And just a word of note that this is something the customer has to license on their own. So in order to identify to PeopleTools how to actually integrate with Twilio, there's a lot of things that you have to set up, like the account number, the password, a whole bunch of things directly in a URL. I'm not going to go into those today since we didn't really change anything about it, and it's in PeopleTools, but there's a link that will be provided in the presentation about defining the URL properties, where the customer can set up everything about how to communicate with Twilio, between PeopleTools and Twilio. Okay. All right, so now we'll get into more Notification Composer specific things. So far, we've only covered the installation table in the app, and then also some of the PeopleTools settings. So these are the Notification Composer specific pages. So I just included, some of the menu items so you're aware of what they are. There are 5 to be aware of, and we're going to walk through each one of these. The first one is the AWE to Notification Composer conversion. So this one I am going to sort of talk about, but it'll be more important when we actually talk about the change assistance steps, as well as the AWE conversion processing in general. that we'll talk about in the next training session. But basically, this page is a run control. It has dual purpose. The customer can come here ad hoc and run the process. And we also use this information, this setup in Change Assistant. So whatever this is set to is what is used when we run the AWE conversion in Change Assistant when they actually select Notification Composer and PeopleSoft Update Manager. So what these two mean is basically map to delivered basically means, hey, me as a customer, I'm going to take what PeopleSoft delivers and use that at a high level. We'll talk more about that later. Preserve basically means, okay, I may have a mix and match of what PeopleSoft delivers and my own stuff. Like maybe I created my own, maybe I have modified what PeopleSoft delivered. That's what preserve means, is that, hey, I want to keep my configuration, but I want you to convert it to Notification Composer. We'll dig way more deep into this and what it means in session number 3. But anyway, the thing to know is that these settings are used in Change Assistant, and the customer can actually come to this run control page and run it manually. Both of those methods actually run an App Engine program, by the way. All right, now more of the nitty-gritty setup. So basically, the first thing is define business process. This is very similar to what we had previously with Trigger Business Event. Everything had a business process to help categorize and classify the different events. The business process identifies which area or business process the notification is associated with and or is generated from. PeopleSoft delivers business processes as system data. However, customers can add their own. The page allows to edit or add or edit business processes, and for anything the customer adds, the option to delete is also provided. You also notice there's a little filter button. I filtered on T just so you can kind of see the test one that I added, and that's why it's kind of turned a yellow color. But this shows you where you can add. Edit is with the edit icon, and of course the test business process is one I added after the fact, so it thinks the customer added it, and that's one that can delete. Since the others were added by PeopleSoft and are considered system data, that's why they cannot be deleted. When you add a business process, pretty straightforward. It's just really the business process name, the description, and the object owner ID. The word of note is that most business process were delivered with words, not separated with a space, in order to indicate the field is not translated and looks more like an ID or code. Even though it doesn't have the word ID in it, it is an ID. Description is translated, however, the business process is not. User list. So this is really the recipients of who will get the notification when it's actually sent. This allows you to define the user list. You can add or edit, and of course, for anything added by the customer, the user list can be deleted, similar to what we saw with business process. There are 4 different types of sources where you can build a user list. You can use an application class, which basically means you're going to use people code to resolve the user list at runtime. SQL, basically you're going to use a SQL object to come up with the user list. A role means you're going to specify a particular role, like maybe HR administrator or people tools administrator, or who knows what. Role query, that basically means you're going to use the people tools ability to identify the users that are in a particular role or roles. This is where you could actually have multiple roles in a role query, and it can resolve to what users actually have those roles. And depending on the source selected, the result type field will be defaulted or will allow a selection to be made for the type of result Notification Composer should expect. So digging into that a little bit more, for source of application class in SQL, the result type can be selected, either user ID, email, or phone number. And for the others, role and role query, user ID is defaulted as the result type and is not changeable. So again, these are the different methods that allow you to resolve who and what recipients are supposed to receive a notification. Okay, next up is really the bulk of Notification Composer. The others are more just, setup data, and there is one more, the notification event, but this is where we get into a lot of detail about Notification Composer. So this is where the bulk of the setup is. Compose notification is where the message content and other important information is set up. The main page in Compose Notification provides the ability to search for and add new notifications. For existing, the ability to view, edit, and copy existing notifications is provided via the related action on each row. So just taking a moment, on the upper right-hand corner, you have Add Notification. And over to the left, the search button allows you to enter some criteria and search for it. Maybe by notification ID, if you know it, the category, the notification name, et cetera, et cetera. And then, of course, on each row, you have the related action that you can see, the little down arrow inside a circle. And that's where you can perform things like view it, edit it, or copy it. Maybe you want to copy one and change it or whatever. Also, as well, anything added by the customer also has the ability to delete. Okay, so this is where we want to go into a little bit about how you add a new notification. We're going to keep it really basic, and the next session we'll go into some more advanced topics. But the notification ID is really what uniquely identifies the notification to Notification Composer. For our delivered notifications, we name the notification ID the same as the notification event in general, really just to keep the two in sync. So the next thing is the notification category. And this is really a way of categorizing different types of notifications because there's special handling for certain types of notifications. Basically, application notification is the default, and that's what most of our application delivered notifications use, other than those that are sent by an application framework like AWE, Activity Guide Composer, and Questionnaire Framework. And I put the current list of categories because we may end up expanding this some more as we integrate with campus solutions and other pillars. We don't know what frameworks they have that might need special handling. So for now, I mean, these are the four categories that we actually have. Okay, so when you're composing a notification, there are some preferences. And basically, this kind of sets up, what's going to show up in the guided process, or for lack of a better word, the activity guide that is going to display to kind of walk you through composing the content and selecting parameters and options, et cetera. And the composer preferences allow to basically hide things that are more advanced or that are typically not needed by a customer. So what you see here is we default configure notification link is turned on. Override default handler is turned off, and event mapping is turned off. Those are more advanced features that we'll cover in the next training session. So for now, we're going to walk through the steps to create a new notification where configure notification link is turned on and the other two are turned off. This configure notification link, and we'll talk more about it when we get to the step that has that. But basically, it's saying, hey, yeah, I want to configure the URL. And really, that's the target component in PeopleSoft or elsewhere, maybe it's outside of PeopleSoft, who knows, the target link destination that will be used for the notification. So basically, if it's an email, it'll have a link in the notification in the email that the user can click on. If it's an in-app, when they click on the alert or action in the notification pane, this will take them somewhere. So this is really constructing where the user goes, that when they actually select or whatever, read the notification, who knows what, depending on the delivery method, this is what controls what happens. The override default handler, I'm not going to say much about this one today. We'll walk into that, but basically we provide the ability for customers that have technical staff that, hey, you delivered your default handler, and 9 times out of 10, a customer is not going to need to change it. But if they do, we provide the ability to override that. So for the training today, we're going to have this off. And the next one, event mapping, this basically creates a notification trigger. It's another advanced topic. We're going to leave that off for today and walk through the flows with the 2 that are off in the next training session. So with that, let's go to the first flow. And this is with just configuration link turned on and the other 2 turned off in the composer preferences. So the first thing is to understand is the general notification information in step 1. So basically the status field. So this allows a customer to really deactivate a entire notification. Let's say that you've gone through, or maybe it's something PeopleSoft delivered and the customer just wants to turn it off really quickly. They can come here and say inactive and it will not be sent. Or maybe, it's something that they're testing out and they're not quite ready to make it active. This could be inactive, which will prevent the notification from being sent, within the application. The next one's the owner ID field. This is really the object owner ID field. It indicates the product or feature area that the notification is utilized in. While this field will help customers search for notifications internally, just to know, this field is also used to help determine the product hierarchy. So for example, maybe there's an object owner ID, like a product has 6 object owner IDs, like recruiting in HCM has like 6 or 7. We figure out a product hierarchy in order to figure out what languages the notification is translated into. So this field is important internally, not quite so important for customers, unless they're using it to search. It's more, we always put this here for most objects we deliver because of translations, and to figure out, what products are translated into certain languages. And therefore, if this object is owned by a certain object owner, we'll be able to figure out all the different languages that it needs to be translated into. The priority field, basically, this is really handled by PeopleTools. But we do specify it so we can pass it to PeopleTools. The priority can be low, medium, or high. For email and in-app notification, the setting determines, sorry, there's a typo there, how the message is displayed. High priority notifications may display with an exclamation mark. And I use the word may because not every email basically supports priority. So it really depends on what email client the user is using. We do show that in the in-app messages when it's a high priority. Typically, most of the things we deliver are a medium or a low. The default message set is kind of an idea that was added here that, you have to specify message set about 5 or 6 times potentially. I'm probably exaggerating, but, we didn't really want to have to repeat the message set over and over and over again, because 9 times out of 10, it's going to be the same message set, just a different message catalog number. So this was kind of a shortcut to enter once that will default elsewhere as you're going through the setup. The PeopleTools notification name, I mentioned at the very beginning that, this is the main hook into PeopleTools that integrates Notification Composer to PeopleTools notification framework. It's the most important field to understand since it controls all the delivery methods and personalization, et cetera. So, PeopleTools does the heavy lifting. And really, once we pass over and know what the notification name is to PeopleTools, it takes it from there. It identifies, basically from the recipients that we tell PeopleTools to send it to. It looks at my preferences to figure out, is the user, going to receive the notification? Were they able to personalize and say they wanted a text or an email? Really, PeopleTools figures that all out. We don't do that on the notification composer side. All we do on the notification composer side is send the list of recipients, and send the message content, and PeopleTools, based on the notification name, determines, how it's going to be delivered, and, all the different admin configuration for the notification name is considered before PeopleTools sends it. So that's why it's important to make sure you pick the correct notification name on the notification composer side for each notification and notification event. Okay, there's an information icon that's really handy. This kind of shows you, hey, well, what does this notification name have configured? So as you can see here, it tells you whether something's mandatory, whether in-app text or email is available, and whether it's on by default. And if you click on more details, it shows you whether personalization and what permissions or roles, or what we call authorizations, are there as well. Next up is the business process. So I went through the setup of the business process. This is where you actually say, hey, this notification is associated with this particular business process. And why this is important, this really allows us to group things together. So maybe a customer wants to know everything that's in the direct deposit business process, or the expense report business process, or who knows what. So really, this allows, once you specify this here, then there's pages that allow you to search for all the notifications for a particular business process, thereby, really increasing the visibility that I talked about in the first session, is that everything now is registered in Notification Composer. And really, this kind of forms the documentation, supplement to the documentation. People will be able to see everything for direct deposit, everything for expense reports, everything for, who knows what. Every single business process now, the customer will be able to determine what notifications we delivered because of this particular configuration. Next up is the user list. This is the list of recipients. And this is what kind of ties together, what you've defined as the configuration for the user list. The next one is the notification link. As I said before, this is really what the message content will contain if it's an email or a text. And then in-app, when you click on the alert or the action in the notification pane, this is the URL it will go to. So really, it's just the standard things you see throughout PeopleSoft. It's the portal, menu name, component, market. Really, it's setting up all the different attributes to know how to construct the URL. And really, if you're familiar with PeopleSoft, there's a whole bunch of different modes. So we need to know what mode the user needs to go into when they actually click on the link. Maybe it's update display, maybe it's correction, maybe it's add, depending on the notification. So this allows you to specify that. The binds really are to set up the search keys, and that's really technical, but if you're familiar with the URL that you'll see at the top of the PeopleSoft application, as you're moving through the application, this actually allows you to pass parameters so that, let's say that the example I have here is the company table. Maybe I'm creating a notification to notify when a brand new company is saved. Just an example I came up with. and I want to, have a link that takes the user to the company table and be able to open up. Let's say that I create a company XYZ. This will allow you to include a bind that basically passes XYZ in the parameter. So when they click on the link, it will bring up the company table for the XYZ company that was just added. That's really what this is doing at a very high level. Some of this can be left blank. It depends on how your notification handler is set up and what the people code that's actually doing the calling of this notification from the application does. So in this case, I specified all of it, but in some of the delivered, you may see it blank because the record name and the field name, because the people code is actually passing that information over, so it's not needed. Message source. So basically, this is how the message content will be resolved for the different delivery methods. So we have 3 message sources: custom text, email template, and of course, message catalog. These are just the different ways that the text that you're going to include in the notification can be constructed or resolved. So custom text, of course, just means you're going to type in text. Email template means you're going to use the information from generic templates. And of course, message catalog, pretty self-explanatory. You're going to use the text that's configured in the message catalog. So in-app messages are shown on the notification pane, and the notification type here controls the tab that the in-app notification is displayed on. If you select alert, it means when this is sent, it's going to show up on the alerts pane. If you select actions, of course, it's going to show up in the actions pane. So now we actually have a configurable way of identifying where something goes. Previous to this solution, only AWE generated notifications went to actions. Everything else that we delivered, like trigger business events or whatever, went to alerts when we did in-app. And the main reason is you couldn't clean them up without adding code. And AWE automatically cleans things up when you approve. What that means is if you have an action and it says, so-and-so has, this particular transaction is awaiting your approval. I can't remember what the exact text is. They go into approvals, approve it. Approvals automatically deletes it from the action, so the user doesn't see it anymore. That doesn't happen unless you have code that actually does the cleanup. Well, we've resolved some of that I'll talk about in some of the advanced features of this in the next training session. But now you have the ability to say where you want to go, because we have a mark complete button that you can clean up your actions similar to what AWE does. Whereas, alerts today basically has the little X where you can delete it if you're done with it. So now you have the choice of whether you want it to go to actions or alerts.
So Russell, there was a question that came in: where to configure notification handler?
Okay, so the notification handler is really, we use a common handler across all of Notification Composer. So you don't really need to define a handler. However, your trigger for the notification, the application, is people code that we deliver typically. So basically, the people code is typically somewhere in the business logic that basically says, hey, when the user does this, this, or this, maybe it's saved, maybe it's something else. We say, okay, well, send the notification. So it's similar to what we did with trigger business event, except that was in workflow people code. So we're really doing the exact same thing we used to do. It's just now, instead of calling, MCF to send the email, or calling trigger business events to, generate an email or whatever, now we're calling Notification Composer. So there's people code in the application that calls Notification Composer, but Notification Composer has a standard handler that handles everything, unless you want to go really, really advanced and have a whole bunch of other logic. Then you can define the handler. So we'll talk about that when we get to the advanced topics. But for most customers, they won't need to change the notification handler. All right. Basically, a couple of things to know about email is we do have an enable logging option. And basically, if this is turned on, it means that if the message source is email template, now I'm confusing myself. Let me go back. Enable logging basically puts it out to PTWF notify table and can be viewed on the PTWF notify RECV. But basically, the template name is the generic template. When you specify that in PeopleTools, basically you define the sender, the subject, the message text, the priority, etc. When you select that on the notification composer side, it shows you basically what was selected, and that's why you see it here. And that's what will be used as kind of your message content when an email is sent.
What is email logging, Russell?
Okay, so basically all it is any email that's sent in the application, we will write it out to a table in PeopleTools. It's PTWF notify table. So it's a little known feature today that basically and I don't know that we'd want everybody to have access to that, but basically it allows you to see the emails that have been sent. So basically there's a table in PeopleTools that you can go in typically as an administrator to kind of see what was sent. That's really all it is. And I'll show a screenshot and some of the advanced features in the next training sessions. You can kind of look at what is shown and what happens when this is actually selected. Okay. All right, great. Well, thank you everybody for your time, and look forward to talking to you next time. Thank you so much.